Hello, and welcome to another video that makes you wish that you were watching anything else. Previously, we played through the 2019 season in Out of the Park Baseball, trying to tank, but almost making the playoffs instead. We pick up at the beginning of the offseason, where I can finally start making significant changes to the roster. As you can see, the Rockies were top-notch at the plate, but the starting pitching was only 9th best in the league, with the bullpen a complete disaster. Great hitting and poor pitching.
It's no city beer, it's Coors.
Yes, for those of you who do not know, this game does in fact attempt to replicate the Coors effect, basically driving up ERAs and batting averages alike. So while ordinarily I'd be upset if my starting pitching were 9th best, given it's the Rockies, I'm actually pretty okay with that. But let's see if we can do better. I don't think we can win the World Series this season, but I do think we can at least make the playoffs. First thing I do during the offseason is knock out personnel. Most of the minor league staff left, which I intended. Unfortunately, because of time constraints, I will only be showing you before and after hires. Here were the vacancies I needed to fill. And here are the positions filled, with the exception of one I evidently had forgotten. I'm just a bad GM, I guess. No changes were made to the MLB staff at this time. For my arbitration-eligible players, I mostly offered contracts near arbitration estimates, but here are the notable extensions. German Marquez signed a contract worth $24 million over 3 years. I probably could have gotten him a little bit cheaper, but I'm pretty confident he'll be worth the money. I signed Robbie Ray to a contract worth $53.5 million over 4 years. I'm pretty happy with the signing and hope he continues to perform at a high level. Trevor Story signed a $23 million 2-year deal. To be honest, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be trading him at some point, or I would have signed him longer. Lastly, David Dahl didn't quite get the Ian Desmond sweetheart deal, but he did get $60 million over 6 years. I'm ecstatic about this because he's a solid outfielder and very young. As long as he stays healthy, he will be great. There was one more arbitration case, but unfortunately they decided they had no intention of negotiating a new contract, instead fuming on the toilet while tweeting at 3 a.m. Since I had to arbitrate, I lowballed him $50,000 out of pure spite, and then won the arbitration case. Fuck you, Nomar. Lastly, the non-tenders. Bettis, O, Russ, and Yates were all released and are now presumably living on a farm upstate. As for Drew Butera, well, let's just say the players were kinda unhappy about him going away. That's okay, they'll live. The final moves I make before free agency begins were to DFA Harrison Musgrave and add Jonathan Daza and Jesus Tinoco onto the 40-man roster. Oh, and if you're wondering how bad Philip Deal was in the last season, because, I didn't show you, it's funny, he's pretty good at AA, but at AAA and above, he's like a child drowning in a swimming pool. No one wants to see that. Free agency begins, and here you can see some of the available talent we have to choose from. My main concern is improving the bullpen and finding an impact bat to push us into the playoffs. The problem I immediately came across was the fact that all of the best relievers and closers were fucking fly ball pitchers. That is simply not going to fly at Coors Field. Well, the ball will, obviously, but the notion that I would want... You know what? Never mind. I attempt to sign Trevor Rosenthal to a contract worth $9.5 million over 2 years, but he comes back and demands more and more money. I continued to rebid for his services, and without fail, he would come back and demand more money. I finally offer him $23 million over 3 years, which isn't Wade Davis money, but still plenty for a reliever. He came back and demanded more money, his hand out like a fucking bum, and I just said forget it. Instead, I signed an international free agent, Tomoyuki Funaki, I can't believe I pronounced that as well as I did, to a contract worth $10.5 million over 4 years. It's a pretty low risk signing because I can likely trade him if he sucks. But for my big pitching acquisition, I picked up Steven Strasburg on a deal worth $117 million over 6 years. This guy in real life is a question mark with pitch limits and such, but in this game he'll be fine. I thought about signing Tyler Skaggs, but that's just way too much money to pay a deceased pitcher. It would bring a whole new meaning to the dead ball era. Too soon? I signed Brett Gardner to a minor league deal, guaranteeing him $3 million if he should be called up by day 30. I didn't end up using him, and you'll see why shortly. I made several trades, including one that got rid of that stupid Nomar guy. I traded him, Nate Carnes, and a minor leaguer to the Cardinals for Carlos Martinez, with them retaining 25% of his salary, and Lukenbacher. Another trade was with the Cubs, and oh my god, I finally got rid of Ian Desmond. Along with Zach Greinke's ridiculous contract in a minor leaguer, I received Jason Hayward with them retaining 15% and 2 minor leaguers I'm actually pretty happy about. I cleared up so much salary and I got rid of Ian fucking Desmond. You might be asking why I would get Jason Hayward when my outfield is relatively stacked as is. After all, I really only need a 4th, and his contract is insane. I have had bad luck with outfielders getting injured when I played this game, so instead, I'm just gonna go ahead and pay as if I needed 4 outfielders. And yeah, I understand that Jason Hayward's contract is ridiculous, even with the 15%, but if Charlie Blackmon or David Dahl should get injured, I've got a halfway decent replacement at right field. So, sue me. Finally, in the acquisition department, I picked up Tuki Toussaint. I don't know how I can't pronounce that name, but I got that Japanese name in the Rule 5 draft. Honestly, really surprised he isn't on the 40-man roster. This guy has the middle rotation written all over him in real life. Probably my favorite current ball player for the Braves organization. To make this all work, I had to release Jake McGee. I tried trading him, but there were simply no teams that wanted him. Definitely understandable. Thankfully, this is the last year of his stupid contract, so next year I won't have to deal with it anymore. Glad I got rid of Zach Greinke. Dude is fucking losing it. Lastly, for the offseason, the league decided to reduce team controllable years by 1 and decrease required service years before arbitration by 1. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but this will really hurt in later years trying to keep players. Honestly, really pissed off about this. We simmed through spring training and... Spring training ends and the Rockies do pretty well with an 18-10 record. I feel pretty good about our chances here. We reach opening day, and after a blizzard of demotions, this is the roster I'm left with. Here are my pitching assignments, and here are my lineups. As always, I play through opening day. This one didn't go our way. I knew something was up because German Marquez was using a lot more pitches than normal, but I think it was somewhere right around here when I realized I had fucked up. Regardless, the point of me playing isn't necessarily to win, though one would hope, but to use as few pitchers as possible to start the season off. A well-rested bullpen is typically an effective bullpen. We begin to sim the season, and Nolan Arenado decides to go on an absolute tear and hit a home run in 6 straight games. Why did you stop? That's it for April. We enter May with a 17-9 record, a .654 win percentage, sitting in second in the division. It's early, but I'm optimistic with the direction of the team. Here are the pitching stats, as well as the batting stats. The only moves I make are sending Jared Miller to AAA and calling up Reed Humphreys in his place. Here are my new pitching assignments, as well as my lineup. Well, that's May. Seriously, no injuries or any other odd events, just a lot of losses apparently, because we entered June with the 26-27 record, meaning for the month of June the Rockies went 9-18. That's Orioles level bad. Here are the pitching stats, as well as the batting stats. I have no real reason for alarm, and I'm chalking this up to just a bad month. It happens. The only moves I make are to send Jamie Westbrook to AAA and call up Nelson Molina. Here are my pitching assignments, as well as my lineups. Shortly into June, Steven Strasburg hurts himself and is out for 2 to 3 months. Not great, but I guess it could have been worse. To replace Strasburg, who I placed on the 60-day injured list, I call up John Duplantier. Here are my new pitching assignments. We reach the draft, and I decide to go a little nuts and get some high-cost draft picks. Seriously, I offered one a $7 million signing bonus, and he still refused it. Fucking millennials and their entitlement. This is part of why I leave a lot of money alone when it comes to payroll, because I can then spend it on these draft picks, because it's the only way I stand a chance of drafting legitimate players. This is hard in real life, much less on this fucking cheap AI shit. We enter July, and Toussaint is the rookie of the month. Not bad for a Rule 5 pick, am I right? The Rockies have a 43-36 record, a .544 win percentage, and is second in the division, losing much ground to the Dodgers. Pretty sure the wild card game is going to be the way to go. Here are my pitching stats, as well as my batting stats. You may notice I'm missing a pitcher. I'm not honestly sure what happened. I checked all of the footage and I just cannot figure out how this happened. The fact I won games with one player less than I'm supposed to is even more impressive. So I call up Jared Miller and these are my new pitching assignments, as well as my lineups. It's time for our mid-season goals check, and the owner is reminding me of how much of a failure I am at my job. I make a trade with the Astros, sending Brendan Rodgers, Trevor Story, and a minor leaguer for Carlos Correa, with them retaining 45% of his salary and 3 minor league players. Rockies fans are going to hate me, but be glad I haven't gotten a Nolan Arenado. Oh, and they are apparently bipolar over this deal. Take your damn meds! I also call up Josh Fuentes as a result of this trade. These are my new lineups. I make another trade with the Yankees, sending Josh Fuentes, who just made his major league debut, Brock Burke, and 2 minor leaguers for Tyler Wade, Tommy Kahnle, with the Yankees retaining 95% of his contract. LaTroy Hawkins would disapprove. I send down Jared Miller as a result of this trade as well. These are my new pitching assignments, and these are my lineups. And Tyler Wade is suspended. That was quick. We enter August with a 50-43 record, a .578 win percentage, and currently sitting in second in the division. Here are my pitching stats, as well as my batting stats. I'm doing so well at this point, I don't play the game after the trade deadline and sim ahead. Steven Strasburg is sent to a rehab assignment where he will remain until roster expansion. We enter September with a 77-54 record, a .588 win percentage, currently second in the division, and currently claim the first wildcard seed. Pretty much we are guaranteed playoffs at this point, so let's just move ahead. These are my pitching stats, as well as my batting stats. I call up Steven Strasburg and anyone else who looked good. These are my pitching assignments, as well as my lineups. John Duplantier decides to start his offseason early and injures himself for 6 months. Nolan Arenado continues raking and has a 9-game run streak. And that's it. We enter the wildcard game with a 95-67 record, which is the best in franchise history, a .586 win percentage, and we have clinched the first wildcard seat. We'll be home in Colorado to face the Mets. Why the Mets? Here are my pitching stats to end the regular season, as well as the batting stats. David Dahl was a 30-30 player in 2020, and Nolan Arenado was the home run champ. No wonder we did so well. But now it's time for October, and there is no way we can lose to the Mets. There is just no way with this playoff roster. We have this. There is just no way we lose. Despite a pretty good job on the pitching front, the Rockies just simply could not hit the ball against Noah Syndergaard. As the game went on, I kept thinking to myself, surely the Rockies will hit the ball soon. It's the fucking Rockies. I finally get to the 9th inning and my waiver claim Socrates Brito hits this home run, giving me a glimmer of hope. But much like in real life, the Rockies simply choke in the playoffs and we lose to the Mets. And if you're a Mets fan and you're watching this for some bizarre reason,
I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing.
But I do want to show you the top of the 7th because the ending is just impressive. I've just placed Marshall Kasowski on the mound and he immediately gives up a single. Okay, it's just a single, we're losing anyway, not a big deal, just a single. He then induces a line drive to Nolan Arenado, who then botches the catch, leaving runners on first and second. Okay, everybody makes mistakes, it's not like the season is on the line and I'm paying you hundreds of millions of dollars to make basic plays. And now we're gonna plunk the next batter, loading the bases. I should have taken him out, but I decided to go bold and leave him in. He then proceeds to strike out the next 3 batters, leaving all 3 runners stranded. Now that is impressive. It's like, fuck all y'all, I'll do this my own damn self. I don't even care that we lost to the Mets after seeing that. Thankfully, the Mets don't even make the World Series, and the Astros bested the Cubs in 7 games. But I am still very upset we lost to the fucking Mets. Why the Mets? It could have been anyone else but the Mets. To end this episode, we find that our owner is upset with my job performance while being not upset with my job performance. You ever have a boss with bad communication skills? And he's giving me a bunch of money for next year. Yeah, that's all you are to me, is a fucking wallet. That's it. That's 2020. Next year is our year. We had a rebuilding year, and this is just the start of our competitive window. We still have fucking decades to go here, so like, comment, and subscribe for more useless baseball simulations. Or don't. I'm not your god, or your father, or your boss.